let's go. I will show you. So basically, as you know, guys, everything inside our catalog of APIs are based on the OpenAPI specification file, and we use it to allow you to import your own API. So this is the first, the first step to add an API inside Meta API is to have this Open API specification file. So you can create it out, or you can, for example, find it on some documentation. Many providers provide this file, and of course we are we are pushing all the provider and participating in API conference to say to any API providers to set available for public availabilities for their own open API specification file. So once you have this file, you can click on add an API and fill up this different topic. Only title, provider, and category description are mandatory, and then you can copy and paste the OpenAPI specification file right here. So it can be Swagger file. Swagger file is just the version OpenAPI in version 2.0, and version 3.0 and 3.1 it's called OpenAPI, but it's exactly the same thing. And for example, I can show you Pipedrive Doc API to show you how to find this kind of API. So I use Pipedrive because if you see this kind of thing inside their documentation, and you have this kind of link, and when you open the link, as you see, you will be able to download this file, and once it's done, sometimes you have this OpenAPI file in YAML formats and not JSON. So you can use Swagger editor.swagger.io to paste this file, to import it, and to convert it and save it as JSON. So that's the way to do it, the main way to do it. But if you don't have this Open API specification file, you have two methods to deal with it and to go forward. You can create it by your hand with tools like Swagger Editor, or you can, for example, we love this tool, it's Toplight, so you can use it to create your own Open API specification file with a nice with nice form, and you don't have to deal with JS code formatting, etc. Maybe I can show you the tool very quickly. So okay, let me take one file. So the tool is looks like this, and you will be able to customize anything, including authentication, and then you can create new endpoints, select the right method, fill an operation ID, a description, all the parameters, and of course the response schema. It's not mandatory, but if you do this inside your OpenAPI file, we will be able then, when you will import your connector inside the code editor, you will have, auto completion when you write your code. So it's very useful. And the last method to use an API, even if you don't have an Open API file, is to use a built-in library inside the code editor named Axios. You will find some documentation. We have official documentation right here. So you can, for example, check the documentation and then use Axios with get and post method, and just, it's the manual way to create a request and have a response. So your spell will be working fine, but with this method you won't be able to see, the detail of request inside the monitoring. Okay, I don't know, Marcel, if you want to add something on this, on how to add your own API.
No, you are you went pretty complete. I don't have anything to say, except maybe you can add an API, and even if you don't have an Open API 5, you can create a blank API, but you can enhance more later. But you can do later, and if you got there is another option to make an Open API file. Is like if you have a Postman collection, you can use a Postman collection and go to a website called apimatics.io.
So it's happy Apymatic is not working. Yes, I will try Apymatic transformer. That's right.
Exactly, with the API transformer. It's a free tool that allow you to convert some Postman collection to OpenAPI file. So it's really handy, and we use it a lot at MetaAPI when we want to add some new API. Just be careful when you go from a Postman collection. Sometimes the authentication is not set, so you have to make it, you have to create the authentication. And for that, I advise you to use Stoplight Studio, who is pretty handy to build Open API files.
Yes, and it will be very easy for you to select the right authentication type, and of course, any public documentation will show you how to authenticate and select the right one, and then you will be able to go through all the process. The next topic will be the webhook and the scheduler. So that's that's two big topics for you, especially for the webhooks. Um, to to make a webhooks first, the first thing to do is to create a spell on your side, and I will create it. I will show you. So when you create a spell and you save it, you will have under the version menu two environments, a development environment and the production environment. For both these environments, you will find an URL. Each spell has their own URL that allow you to call it, manually if you want. When you set up a scheduler inside MetaAPI, this scheduler will call this URL, and of course you can use it as a webhook target. So you will have to use this URL. And one thing to mention about it, and to be careful, is this parameter, it's automatically added on a development environment. So in development environment, each time you hit save on your spell editor, the all the code and all the connector configuration is automatically pushed to your own server development, and this server will automatically shut down after 20 minutes of inactivity. So when you set up a webhook, first time you surely will use this development URL, but you can also, after you have done your spell, it's okay, you create a new version and you push it to production, go to the production I will do it for you. Go to the production environment and then update your webhooks to match this new URL. It's basically the same URL without this query parameter inside the URL. So it will be the same, and with this. And of course, don't forget to copy the URL with your API key, um, or you will have an HTTP 401 error when you an authentication error if you don't do this. And of course, you can here with this menu manage the CPED, select the right API key you want to use, and etc. It's very handy to then to deal with webhooks. Sometimes platform using webhooks will give you the full payload on what is going to be sent to your spell, but sometimes they don't. So the things to know is each time you send you trigger a spell, you can send some parameters inside your URL, or you can, if you do a post request, you can send it inside the body, and everything about parameters will be collected and exposed on your spell inside this param variable. So um, it's if it's the first time you want to use a webhook and you don't know what's coming on, um, I suggest you to just do console.log params and then create an action that will trigger this webhook. And when it's done, you will be able to click on console and you will see on the logs the previous run, and you will have inside the full payload. So then if you want to, for example, to test your spell and do your development, you can copy this payload and paste it inside, so the payload menu, of course, and then you will be able to, each time you will it run, it's like you will simulating a webhook, a webhook request. So that's an handy way to do it.
Mathieu, you have a question.
Hmm?
So Sal is asking, what's the request rate limit to trigger the webhook?
The request limit to trigger the webhook. You don't have rate limiting for your webhook. So that will be a feature we will implement soon for each spell. To say, for example, I don't want my spell to be hit like more 50 times per second. If you want, for example, to prevent your own compute time, and you don't want, for example, to a webhook or any tool that consume all your compute time in like a few hours. So uh, there are no rate limiting right now, so you can send as many requests as you want. But soon we will develop a feature to limit it, both on spell and also on your account. So we are thinking about this because but we know we have some case. It's important to limit. So right now it's unlimited.
So other question from Sal again. If we add a limit, can those be backlogged versus dropped?
You can put your payload in meta storage.
Yes.
Save the extra request in the meta storage to save end calls or another spell, or making the spell using like a scheduler. Like you can couple a scheduler and a webhook. So, for example, if you're working on scheduler, you can take all the backlog requests and make the voice call instead of going to the webhook. But it could be a bit tricky, but I think this is something that could work.
Mm-hmm. And to answer you, Sal, okay, I get the question. Yes, you want to know if, for example, if we hit a rate limit, will this request will be like saved to a queue to be run like later, or to be directly dropped? And the main pattern for an API, if you have a rate limit, is to be dropped. Because we don't know if, for example, for some case, uh, you don't want some transaction to be executed twice or later, because you want to, for example, you rather want to do it on your own side. But it's interesting, and this feature of backlog some requests, and we have also some ID to, for example, old fade requests you have inside your logs can be, for example, retried after a few seconds, few minutes. So I think the first iteration of this feature will be to drop this request, and after that, we will keep you in touch, but we can think of other mechanism you can have about the rate limiting. About the scheduler, so you can of course configure it with the scheduler button inside the spell detail page, and we add for you some, handy way to configure the scheduler, but the most powerful way is to use, uh, the custom method, and to add to use the current expression to do things very powerful. Like if you want to start, can write, yeah. If you want to start every 5 minutes a spell only from, I think I got here like this. So for example, you can, with this kind of expression, you can run a spell every 5 minutes, every hours, only, on work days. So that's a nice thing to do. And for example, we are using it at Meta API, for example, to set up notification from, to push on our Discord some KPI during the day, and we don't want it on weekend. So you can use this kind of expression, and you have this nice website named crontab.guru that will give you some insight on how you can create your own cron expression. And of course, if it's like running a request. So if any execution can be done, and if you have error, you will have error directly inside your spell.
And you can retrieve all your schedule spell in the page corresponding.
Yes, exactly. I will set up this one. Yes, something to add is when you configure a scheduler, you can specify a payload to you know to execute each time the scheduler is set. So um, the main behavior is to don't set anything, but if for example, you have as parameter some specific value. You can specify using this payload, and I will save it. And as you said, Marcel, you can of course see all your scheduler, your active and inactive scheduler right here, and each time it's executed, you will be. Sorry, I go back here. and you will be able to see what's the next run, what's the frequency, and for each previous task, you will see if everything goes right or wrong, and have a quick access to the spell to fix it if needed. Pushing your spell on production. I already go through it, explaining the webhook, but the main thing to understand is that the code you can have in your spell editor right here can be different than the code you have on production. And it's pretty common to have this buff environment because the first time, of course, you have nothing, so you want to create a spell and to use it directly. So maybe you miss the point of having two environments. But once you have a spell on production already, pushing you some notification or synchronized data between the different application. For example, if you want to add an improvement to this spell, so um, you will have to go on development mode. So you want to experiment your code, to test your code, etc., without um, you know uh, without the to break your production. So that's why you have two environments, and so you can work here on development, and once it's done, you go on version and you publish a new version. So I will do it right now. You deploy it, and after a few seconds, your code in production will be replaced with the new code, and that will give
Mathieu,
you yes.
we have another question. Sorry to interrupt you
No,
from
no, no, okay.
Sal again. So he's saying you have to always update the payload on the schedule portion that doesn't seem to sync with the code environment, even when publishing to production.
I get it. You say that the payload which is here, we can okay, we can figure out right now if we have already a scheduler set up, we can figure out what is the new payload. So we can for example know that we have a first name and a last name parameter that we have to set. So okay, maybe okay, we will check it to make this payload tape a little bit, for example, easier to understand and easier to set up, especially when you have to publish a new version, you adapt to payload, and how I can update my scheduler, and of course I have a reminder to update my scheduler. Okay, but most of the time I recommend of course, even if you have some static information, but if you have a scheduler, you want some like a dynamic value, and then you can skip the payload parts and set your value, for example, directly inside your code, like constant.
This, or if you need a dynamic variable, you can use the meta storage and set it each time you run the code. It's like the rate limiting. And each time the spell will be called, you can set up a new variable, a new value of your variable inside the spell.
Yes, but maybe Marcel, we can show a little bit more about meta storage and how to use it, for example.
Yeah.
So just comment it, and I'll wait. I will just make the animation and show how to do it. And yes, thank you, Sal. And I saw your question about the storage limit. Right now, the storage limit is 16 megabytes. So it's like pretty small, but it's not the aim of MetaStorage, to replace um, a standard SQL or any other database. It's more like having some small value to have and to synchronize between your spell. But Marcel, let's go. I speak too much.
No, it's okay. First, to understand meta storage a little better, we design it like your local storage you found on JavaScript for your web browser. So pretty much, so that's why it's pretty small. Because, like Matthew said, the purpose of meta storage is not to replace the database, an old database, and mostly it's just a key value storage, like you can find on the local storage for browser. So you will have three function you can use to you can use to access meta storage. First, donc set, update, set, get, and delete. Setting a key allows you to create a new key or to update one. Getting a key, it's just for receive a value from a key passed in parameters, and delete, it's just for the it's pretty obvious, but it's allow you to delete the key on meta storage. For example, we can make an example if you want, Mathieu.
Yes.
Of to create something. Meta storage.
For example, you can use meta storage to track the last synchronization or the last time you have for example trigger a spell. That's a great way. For example, if you want to retrieve a list of users from I don't know, Airtable or Google Spreadsheet or anything you want, you can for example set each time your spell is requested and executed. You can use it, for example, to have the last date and use it, to restrict, for example, API request and then update the date. So the way to do it is, for example, to create a key named last thing, for example.
Yeah.
And I will last thing date.
So you can make your own logic here, and at the end of the spell, or even right after, you can make meta storage set last thing.
Dot set with, for example, so last sync as a key and a new date. So each time your spell will run, we will get the date, use it. So this value can be set to the last date or undefined if it's the first time it's executed. And as Masa said, you can put all your logic here and at the end. So if you have, for example, an error on an API, etc., it will crash, so it won't reach the last line. So the date won't be updated. So it can be great, for example, to allow rerun on this spell with the previous date, because anything has been synced all the way. And then as Marcel said, you can set it to a new value. So if the same spell or another spell want to use this value, you can do it. So that's pretty much the great use case of this meta storage. We can I can tell you also we can use it for seeking a list of users, storing like ID inside to check between two synchronization if I have already synced this ID or not. So
there is a question from Sal about the variables. So he's asking, can we use the storage to sync variables between spells?
That's one way to use meta storage too with it. So every spell will be using the same meta storage. So yeah, you can pass different. You can sync variables between spells. You will have to be careful on what you're doing with the data, because if you've got two spell running in the same time but change the same value, it can be pretty messy. But like every database, but this is totally something you can do to setting session variables or environment variables. And regarding old token, yeah, that's one way to do it. But we already handle old authentication in Meta API. So this is not something you have to do on your own, since an authentication can be passed through all your spam.
Exactly. We already do it for you, for free with nothing to do. So no, you can. But as you said, you can, for example, do it like an environment or session variable. That's a way to use it also. But one word, we know that we are missing some environment variables. For example, when you want to connect to, for example, a MySQL server, today you have to write all your ID and password inside your spell, and we are working on a feature to store it securely inside your own account, and of course you can access it, but with a more stable way than a meta storage, because we don't want, for example, that environment variable to be altered or updated by other spell. For example, it's like an environment variable. It's more like a static key or static information. Monitoring. So that's perfect. I have done some run. I have done nothing. The scheduler, I've done some requests on my spell, so everything was working fine during I was speaking to you guys. And you can see on monitoring, each time you are using the console.log, console.error, console.info function, it will be register inside your logs like this, and you can, for example, it's very practical to to store some data if you want. And of course, if you don't want that any data to be stored inside this, you just have to don't use it. And you can, for example, use condition inside your spell. For example, if you have an error, you can trigger only on error. So you can do it with something like with this if you want to run your spell. But if you have an error, you want to log some specific information, you can use the try catch inside your spell. So it's a JavaScript way to do it. And inside the catch, for example, you can say console.error. Something went wrong. Blah blah blah. With, for example, an object, and then throw your own custom error. And each time you throw an error, you will receive an alert inside your mail inbox. So my error. Whoops. And with this kind of thing, you will be able inside the log. I will show you. So of course, I will make it crash.
It's Sal asking if we can do catch parentheses E error, catch an error to retrieve the error.
You're right.
And yeah, to answer you, this is something possible. Yes, it's Matthew has been too fast on this one.
So you can do this, for example, and if I go here in the log, you have only log in production, and if you want also to access the log inside the monitoring, click on access your monitoring, and then you will be able to filter from development or production. And as you can see, I have all the information accessible and ready to use. So, for example, to make a console.error with the params, for example, we can see exactly what is the payload going through this request. So with this kind of thing, it's very easily to debug it. But don't worry, we have some idea to catch in your error the full entering request and maybe log it. So just stay tuned for this kind of feature. But we have a lot of ideas to improve all the developer experience relating to monitoring.
We can add something about the security of the data. The data saying that we only store the data for 7 days, and after it we erase it from our own database. So this is as a manner of security. And of course, we only store automatically the error logs for you to debug more easily. But when nothing happens, if you want to store any data, it's when you ask for it, like when you do a console.log, console.error. This time we will log it, but only for 7 days.
Yes, and on our side, we only store, as you say, metadata like execution time, the request and response size, and the HTTP error, and that's it.
The question from Sal, so he said a cool feature maybe to have Webhook so that if a spell is triggered, it triggers an endpoint for us and are in the log stored for 1 year.
To answer about 1 year store, because what we delete, it's only the response, so the console.log. Matthew, if you can show the start running string, the things in yellow or the big red things, that's the only thing we delete. Otherwise, the metadata of the logs are stored, like the time when it was running, if it was development or production, the error code, and the execution time and request size. Otherwise, all the logs are deleted. But really, only the code, the console log.
Yes, only the information inside the logs line, because sometimes we don't want to store for too many times. Maybe some sensible data come here, and a great security approach is when you have nothing to store. It's just safer. So the item, the log item will stay, but not the console information inside. And if you have something back on it, if, for example, if what mean it's too short, just ask. And about the logs limit, is no, it doesn't affect the meta storage limit, and it's the logs limit is limited by the how many information your spell can send back to you. So it's if I remember right, it's 10 megabytes. So 10 megabytes of logs is like a lot, a lot of information. If you have 10 megabytes of logs, maybe you should you should rethink the way you log you log things. It's inside Meta API. Yes, 10 megabytes per execution. That's it. Exactly. And one word, if I well understand your feature about a webhook when a spell is triggered, um, we have in mind a feature to, for example, trigger a spell. When you have a spell in error, um, now it's sending you an email with an alert. And we also think about triggering another spell with the error inside the payload. So with this kind of thing, you can, for example, having a spell with an error and then trigger another spell to send you, for example, uh, a special notification or your own notification, I don't know, on Discord, on Slack, on another API, maybe trigger another spell which like doing a revert. But the possibility are endless, but we are still thinking how we can chain a spell like this. So that's maybe you want to say about your question and this kind of feature. And of course, if you want to trigger an endpoint inside the spell, it's like a API request, so you can use a connector or Axios to do it. Yes, for the other, you said that some other platform has Webhook to do this and to subscribe to event. So that's a way to do it. So we will think about it. So thanks for the tip and thanks for the feedback. About the way to use dependencies, that's a great question. I will go back to my spell. So you can manage npm package and npm dependencies right here. So this search menu is directly connect to npm, so you can search for any npm package and any npm libraries you want. The only restriction we have right now on dependencies is only dependencies with pure JavaScript or TypeScript code can be executed, because we don't, for now, we don't support like installation of dependencies that depend on binaries on other tools like for example, we have some FFmpeg libraries which is used, for example, for transcoding video that won't work, or dependencies like, if you know a little bit about scrapping, like Puppeteers or Playwright, you won't be able to use it. But this part, you can use any JavaScript or TypeScript pure library. So you just have to type it and to select the dependence you want. You can customize the version you want to install. And I think, Marcel, we will add some information about the way the dependency is injected inside the spell, right?
Yes, it's coming later today.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. We can be faster than that.
And can you just show to use API across npm dependency, because you can also call some API directly with this kind of npm.
So let me go through WooCommerce. So the first part is to, for example, find out where we can add this kind of the SDK and the exact SDK. So I know that libraries, perfect. So we'll use for us the Node.js libraries. So perfect, I'm on EPM, so I just have to copy and paste it inside manage dependencies. Perfect, I think it's this one, 1.5, perfect. I save it. So right now the WooCommerce API dependency is installed, and for using it, you just have to like follow the setup inside each npm dependencies. You always have some kind of documentation to set up and to quick use it. So what I can do, I just have to, for example, copy and paste, not here, right here, for example. So I don't have to do the require, but as Marcel said, we will show you this required is automatically done by Meta API. And the name, you have to use it is the name you want to you set up for the alias value. So for example, if you want to name it WCommerce, I can set it and use it like this. And as we say, our editor say, okay, this variable, this function has been found. And then you just have to follow the way to use this kind of dependencies, and that's it. And you can use it like this. And as I can see, I have all the get, post, but the information that will work like for us a native connector. The main difference that you won't be able to see inside the monitoring the detail about each API call, because it don't go through our gateway, so we won't be able to report you some statistics about it. But all the error monitoring, deployment to production will work exactly the same way.
So two questions. I think the first one I can address it to Marcel. So Philip is asking, is there an ATR for the Shopify API?
Well, about Shopify, it's pretty difficult because they do not respect the standards of authentication. So we can't add it to Meta API, sadly, or otherwise we have to change all Meta API just for Shopify. And so we are. So I try to work with them to change and to make them to respect the standards, but it's pretty difficult since they don't want to change this. But one thing you can do with Shopify is to use the SDK they provide and to work with it. But yeah, we are working on Shopify, and but I can't give you an ETA, Philip, about when Shopify will be ready to be the connector in MetaAPI, sadly.
Second question, I think we can address it to you, Mathieu. So are there any plans to let version control with GitHub so that they can do local development in their own editors?
So it's a very interesting question. We are thinking a lot about it. The first thing we will release is to it's still on beta on our side, but to synchronize your code from Meta API to GitHub, so you will be able to store it on GitHub. And we think about the best way to do this, to use, for example, GitHub or GitLab or any Git control system or platform, will be for us to like develop our own VS Code extension to use Meta API directly from VS Code. But the most difficult part for doing this is how we can give you like the same fluid experience between we have a web interface to add connectors, configure it, configure the authentication, and how we can nicely mix it inside VS Code, because on VS Code we have also a lot of restriction, and you can show and interact with extension, and how we can work with your own code. But many users ask us for it will be for us to like develop an extension for VS Code. So
running out of time. So other questions, how do we potentially ask Jarvis to do the code for Meta API?
That's a tricky one because I have seen this website, but Jarvis don't know how to create like our own connector service code. So right now, I think you can use it for like writing some algorithm to transform data from one state to another or something like this, and you can then copy paste it back to Meta API and then add the connector before and after. That could be a way to do it.
Another one coming from the community. So how to do / add authorization steps when an integration needed before doing any actions. And then after we will finish this Q&A with Sal question.
If you have to like have extra step of authentication, like if you don't use a standard way to authenticate, the best way is to use the Axios way to make like manual request, store the token or the key inside, for example, meta storage or just a variable, and then inject it either on the connector or to do it fully manual, like using Axios. No magic. We know that we have also on our plane a way to inject dynamically API key inside the connector, because right now OAuth authentication is very dynamic for us, but API key is like static. You choose the right icon and that's it. And we plan to be able to inject a variable inside the connector. And yes.
Finally, for Asai is asking on the Microsoft Graph OAS for the ATA. So he saw that we've been working on this. Do we have any updates to give him on Microsoft Graph?
Well, Microsoft Graph is a pretty big API. So, and the OS they gave hasn't the authentication, so we have to create the authentication for Microsoft. But we are working on this, and for sure. But since it's pretty big, we can't. It's pretty hard to use on our tool like Stoplight Studio or even Visual Studio Code, because it's pretty big. It's like 700,000 lines, so it's pretty difficult to handle. But yeah, it will definitely come. I hope in July.
So thanks Sal for your feedback on yes, the synchronization with the I think it was a comment referring to VS Code extension, and yes, also the authentication part will be challenging, to synchronize your own VS Code to the server, but we can think about it, and I will have a look about REST client. If you said that it supports offline stuff, so we will have a look to this tool and say how it's working, and if it's great tool, we can get some inspiration from them to make it work on our side. Okay. So it was pretty intense. So you are waiting, sir. So get ready. Yes, that's right about the Microsoft Glass. That's a big baby to handle on our on our side. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Next time.
Bye bye.
Thank you all. Bye.